Give it a minute here. And technology's so slow. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Hockey Stick Talk Nation on this lovely Friday night with my guest tonight, Gil Martin. Thank you for coming in, Gil. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
And if anyone doesn't know, tonight we're going to be talking some Islanders and Rangers rivalry and a little bit about them. So Gil is super intelligent on the Islanders and the Rangers rivalry. So we're going to pick his brain a little bit tonight. And if you guys have any questions, make sure to list them in the chat and I'll ask them to Gil for you as well. But before we start every show, we just want to give a big shout out to everyone who's popping in here right quick. So thank you to Matthew for coming in, Robert Pop Springs, Dewey Thacker. We got to load the chat up. It's being slow tonight. We got Barry coming in the house. Barry's a Bruins fan, but we don't hold it against him here. And we'll scroll down here a bit more, see who else we got popping in. We have Goza coming in the house tonight, my brother from over in England, huge Rangers fan. So we'll probably get some Islanders trash talk out of Goza here tonight. And we got a good friend of mine, Diggett, who's a Canadians fan, but we don't hold that against him either. They're still doing better than the Rangers, so I can't say much here.
Yeah, they've been a pleasant surprise this year, I have to say.
Definitely. And that's what we got in the chat right now. We'll give a shout out to everyone else who keeps popping in. But as we do, we want to give a big shout out. Let me load it up here to our sponsor for every live, and that's Tsunami Hockeycards. If you guys are looking to buy singles or anything for your PC collection, definitely go check him out on his eBay page as listed there and use the code DMHockey88 for 25% off your first purchase. So definitely go check him out. Shout out to Maiden's World of Wax for coming in. He's a big Canucks fan and also a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. But it is what it is with those Leafs. Will they make it out of the first round? We don't know.
Been a long time since they've won the cup.
It has been. And I think if they win the cup, that city is going to tear itself down.
Yeah, I think that is very, very likely. Look, the last time they were in the cup final and they won the cup, there were 6 teams in this league.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll jump right in here. So up on the slide tonight, we have the top 5 Islanders prospects. And who great to ask besides Gil about these prospects. We can learn a little bit more about them and where they rank in the Islanders system. So Gil, our first one on here is Cole Eiserman. I seen him play for the World Juniors, and this kid is really good. But what can you tell us a little bit about him?
Well, I mean, he's got a special shot. He is an elite shooter. He has a fast release. He can, shoot and be effective from all different kinds of positions and all different kinds of shots and multiple locations on the ice. The thing that sort of allowed him to drop to 20th in this year's draft, where the Islanders were only too happy to scoop him up, is the other facets of his game. And, he looked great in the World Juniors, but at the same time, for Team USA, he was the 13th forward. So he didn't take a regular shift. He kind of filled in, and then he was a power play specialist because what he does when he doesn't have the puck, his defensive play, still needs a little bit of work and development. So he has the potential to be a real good sniper in, let's say, 2 to 3 years. He'll probably be ready for the NHL, but he's got to work on some of those other aspects of his game to get there.
And next we'll go on to Kamil Bednarik. I think that's how you say it. I might say it wrong.
I think it's Bednarik, yeah. And,
okay.
Here is, he's still 18 years old. He's over at BU right now. And, he's more of a playmaker than a goal scorer. needs to put on a little size, a little bulk, but most 18-year-olds are in that situation. Already has 9 points in 17 games at BU, so you got to like that. And he's got good hockey smarts. He can kill penalties. I get the feeling he's not like as dramatic as Cole Yzerman, who's going to make headlines with that shot, but he's one of those players who every coach is really happy to have on their roster, and fans of that team will really appreciate him if they watch him play every day.
Nice. And then I seen him play for the Islanders a little bit, but William Dufour.
Yeah, Dufour is kind of struggling this year. He was sort of a overage draft pick. He's down in Bridgeport in the AHL. He's sort of picked things up maybe the last couple of weeks, but got off to a slow start this year. He can shoot the puck. His skating, I think, is the one thing that's holding him back right now.
And then we'll go on to Danny Nelson.
Danny Nelson is also played for Team USA in the World Juniors. He took a full shift. He was an alternate captain for them, and this was the second year in a row that he was with Team USA. He's more of a well-rounded player. He, again, doesn't have the shot that Cole Yzerman has, but he's more responsible defensively. He's a better passer than Cole Yzerman is right now. And I get the feeling he's like a year ahead of Cole Yzerman in his development. He could reach the NHL maybe at the end of next year's college season. But, I think he's got the potential to be a solid middle six kind of a player who can give you some offense and be responsible defensively.
And next we have Isaiah George, who's actually playing in the NHL right now, and he seems like he's a pretty good fit right now for the Islanders.
Yeah, I've really been pleasantly surprised because Isaiah George is only 20 years old. He's hurt right now, probably going to miss another week before he resumes practicing. But this kid, his hockey IQ is really, really high. He's a good decision maker. The one thing he doesn't have at this stage of his career is sort of a dynamic offensive game, but he is really, he's smart with the puck. He makes the simple but smart play consistently. He's positionally sound, and right now he's a solid third pair defenseman. He probably has the ceiling of being a really good second pair defenseman if he can keep developing his game.
So as of prospects, where would these rank in the Islanders system?
Well, I think right now Cole Yzerman would be listed as number one, only because I think his ceiling potentially is the highest. Danny Nelson is probably right behind him. Bednarik is probably somewhere, in the 4, 5, 6 range if you're going down the Islanders list. And Isaiah George, he's there now. I think he's a top 10 prospect. Again, with Isaiah George, I think the ceiling may not be exceptionally high, but his floor is high. So, he's going to be steady. He's going to be reliable, consistent, and solid, but he's not going to be a dynamic, point a game kind of a player.
Awesome. So thanks for telling us a little bit about them. We appreciate it. A little bit more knowledge on them and who we should watch out for in the upcoming years for the Islanders as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it's good this year, for the first time in 5 years, Lou Lamoriello didn't trade away that first-round pick. He was able to get Cole Yzerman. And finally, even though a lot of these guys are 2-3 years away, there's a little bit of buzz, at least around some Islanders prospects, and that's encouraging.
Yes, definitely, because it'll keep that rivalry going for a few more years as well.
Oh, yeah.
Next, we'll dive into the hockey news for Friday night. So it is saddened to hear this, but former Flames and Canadiens head coach Al McNeil died at the age of 89. Do you know anything a little bit about Al McNeil?
Well, I remember him, coaching both of those teams, and it's kind of sad to, hear about his passing. He was a really solid coach, able to win a cup with Montreal. And I mean, 89 years old is a ripe old age, but it's kind of sad when players and coaches from your childhood are leaving. So, rest in peace, Al McNeil.
Yes, definitely. And then the Devils' Eric Holla could miss a few weeks with a sprained ankle. The Devils, they started out hot, but they're not looking so hot right now either.
Yeah, they're looking for consistency. It's interesting with the Devils. I think, 2 years ago they made the playoffs, and I thought they surprised a lot of people. They were maybe a year ahead of schedule. They kind of regressed last year. Made a lot of moves, improved the goaltending, got off to that hot start. They're still looking for consistency, but I think they will fight for one of the top 3 spots in the Metro for the rest of the year. Obviously, missing Eric Holla for a couple of weeks is not going to help them, though.
Definitely. And the Leafs placed Jake McCabe on IR with upper body injury. And if anybody hasn't seen that, that is when he was fighting Hathaway, and Hathaway's knee came down on top of McCabe's head. So he's out probably for a little bit, probably under a concussion protocol, I'd say.
Yeah, and concussions are tricky things. He could miss a couple of games, or he could miss weeks or months, and let's hope it's on the shorter end of that spectrum.
Definitely, he's one of Toronto's probably better defenders right now as well.
Yep. And then
yeah, and then the Leafs Domies got fined $5,000 for elbowing. Seen that coming, elbow to the head. They want to try to take that out. Anything to the head, they're trying to take out of the NHL.
Yeah, and they have to with what we now know about concussions. And it's ironic because against the Islanders last week, Domi also had a questionable hit. That's why Isaiah George is now injured and missing. I didn't think that was an intentional hit, but he did get his forearm or his elbow up and catch Isaiah George in the jaw. He didn't get fined or penalized for that. And then a couple of days later, he ends up getting fined for this elbowing thing. So I'm hoping Max Domi can sort of, lay off a little bit when it comes to the headshots.
Definitely. And this one was kind of interesting, even how the contract works. And that's the Ducks signed Vetrano to a 3-year, $18 million. And it's weird how they did it because the contract doesn't kick in till 2035 or something like that.
A lot of deferred money. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could look at that as a win-win because Vetrano will get money long after his career is over, and the Ducks don't have to pay him a lot of money up front. So in that respect, it's a win-win.
And I think this will be talked about in the CBA meetings too, because I don't know if they'll want to keep this or try to cut this out.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a loophole, and they'll probably try to figure a way to close that loophole or at least codify it in some way that, it makes sense for everybody.
Definitely. Yeah, I give a shout out to sports car ripping teacher Vince. He's a Blackhawks fan, so he knows all about disappointment. And to John Burgess, the autograph fisherman, he's a Calgary fan, and that Calgary team is looking pretty good so far.
They have surprised a few people this year.
So on to our next one. We have Linus Allmark is week to week, and I think that's really hurting the Sanders right now because they started getting a little bit of wins, and then since he's been hurt, it's been very inconsistent of them right now.
Yeah, they're on a losing streak without Allmark. They miss him big time. He was their big offseason acquisition. He was going to solidify the goalie position. He was just starting to hit his stride, and then this injury happens, and they just can't win without him right now, so they needed to get him back as quickly as possible.
Then we got Sam Bennett's fined $5,000 for roughing Penn's Drew O'Connor.
Yeah, that one, they're giving out the fines, and I think that one was deserved.
Definitely. And then this was huge. I'm kind of glad the Rangers did it, and that's Arthur Kuryev was picked up off waivers from the Kings for the Rangers. And he's still got a lot of talent. He's only 23 years old.
He does have a lot of talent. It's, to me, from a Rangers perspective, it's low risk, high reward. For the cost of a waiver pickup, you get a guy with a lot of talent who hasn't quite gotten his game together. If you can reach him and coach him up and get him some chemistry with some of his new teammates, you can have a really talented hockey player right there. I was kind of disappointed. The Islanders were just before the Rangers in the waiver list, and I would have loved to see the Islanders put a claim in on him, but they did not.
And I think this comes at the perfect time since Kreider's hurt as well, because Koliev can fit into that Kreider role right now as well.
Yeah, he'd be a good fit there, and it gives him a chance to play maybe a little bit of a bigger role up front to integrate himself into that lineup.
Shout out to Christina Payne for coming in. Thank you for coming in, Christina. And then one that happened today was Ridley Gregg signs 4-year AAV for $3.25 million with the Senators. And that's a good signing, I think, because Ridley Gregg's really been playing well.
He has been playing well. It's a fair deal, I think, for both teams. It's not too much money. It's not too much term, but it's not too little either. I think that's a win-win.
Perfect. And we'll jump into our next one here. And this is our Kitchener Ranger draft watch. So for anyone doesn't know, these are 3 players that we're watching from the Kitchener Rangers who are going to be drafted this year. And we're going to keep following them right through till the draft. So we have Cameron Reed, the defenseman, who's played 38 games, 6 goals, 24 assists for 30 points. Having Mike Farewell on in the last few weeks ago, he's really high on Cameron Reed. So he's one that he said NHL teams should really be looking out for. I think he's 6'7" defenseman. So a lot of the size that NHL teams really looking for.
Yeah.
Then we got it.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. So the size is always important when you're looking at draft picks. That and skating ability. If you have both, you're in great shape.
Yeah, and then we have at center, we have Luca Romano. This guy, I watched a few highlights from him last week, and he is a skater, a playmaker, and a goal scorer all in one. So I think this guy will be drafted. Whoever's going to draft him is going to have a good player in this guy. He has 37 games played, 15 goals, 17 assists for 32 points. And then we got Tanner Lane. He played 37 games, 7 goals, 20 assists for 27 points. He is one of your typical playmakers. This kid can make passes happen anywhere, and it's right to the tape to that player. So he's going to be a perfect setup man. He would be a perfect setup man if I was to put it for Ovi for that shot. Because he's going to feed him right at the perfect spot for him.
Very nice. He sounds like the next Adam Oates.
Definitely. So definitely these are our players we're going to be watching to the draft. And whoever going to get these kids is going to have some special kids on their team. Then we got your book. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book, Gil?
I grew up on Long Island, and I grew up around the rivalry between the Rangers and the Islanders, and some of the best hockey that I've ever seen, some of the most intense hockey, was all a part of that rivalry. And I was fortunate enough to interview a lot of the old players, coaches, broadcasters, and just sort of delve into the rivalry. And I sort of set the book up almost like a media guide. So it goes season by season. I have game recaps. I have quotes. I have profiles of one player per team per season. And it goes all the way back to the start of the Islanders in 1972 up until, the modern era. So it was a labor of love, and the former players were great. They told me some really funny stories that if you would have told me that when it was happening, like, back in the 70s or 80s or 90s, I would not have believed it. But it was just a great experience, and I really loved putting this book together.
No, I haven't read it yet because I haven't been able to find. But where would we be able to find your book or pick it up at?
Amazon has it both in the United States and in Canada. And if you can't find it on Amazon or anywhere else, find me on Twitter and I'll help you find a copy. So, and I'm happy to sign a copy if you want me to do that. So, always great to share this labor of love with hockey fans throughout the world, really.
And I see some big names on here that you talked to. Which one was your favorite to hear the story from?
Wow. I mean, I first of all, I didn't speak to every one of those players named, but I did do more than 50 interviews for the book. And some of the people I interviewed are no longer with us, like Emil Francis, for example, who has since passed away. But wow, there were so many great interviews. One of the best ones for me, I'll actually cite two. Nick Fotiu of the New York Rangers and Bob Nystrom of the Islanders, and they told a story, and one told me the story, the other one confirmed it, where Bobby Nystrom got hurt in a game. He ended up in the hospital, and Nick Fotiu came and visited him, and he brought him like cookies from a bakery in one of those bags with the little string that holds it together. And so he's like, "Oh yeah, he brought me cookies," and I'm like, if you would have told me as a 12-year-old kid watching these players go at each other the way they did, that, yeah, he'd visit him in the hospital and bring him cookies, I don't think I would have believed it at the time. But it was a fun little anecdote and a great story. And what I learned about it was just as intense as the rivalry was and is on the ice, there was a mutual respect off the ice.
No, definitely. And some of the, as we were talking backstage, is some of the great rivalries too. You could go with the Rangers, Islanders. You could also go with Quebec, Montreal. Like, these were great rivalries that were good for the game and brought fans in.
No doubt. And I would add the Battle of Alberta. You certainly have the traditional rivalry between Toronto and Montreal going back to the days of the original six. Rivalries are great for sports and they're great for hockey. And when you've got, two fan bases and two teams that face each other in the playoffs a bunch of times and face each other all the time in the regular season, and there's a geographic rivalry to it, that's when you see the best of the sport. And I think these two teams in this instance really brought out the best in each other.
Definitely. I just want to give quick shout outs to people who just popped in here. We have Christopher Works and we have Trev the Shipping Guru. So thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate it. We'll move on to our next one here. It's loading up, maybe. There we go. So this is our fantasy league. So fantasy league, as of right now, as of yesterday when I did this update, we have Land Krakens in the lead. We have Hams Panthers coming in second. We have Deep Diggers in third. Slappy in at fourth. And now I've got Krebs in at 5. So that's our fantasy update for this week. And we go on to the trade rumors. So nothing new since last time we updated, but Mika could to waive his no trade clause, and he's starting to heat up, so he might get a little bit more in return there as well.
Yeah, that's interesting to see if he'll waive the no trade clause and then where he would waive it to.
Definitely. And then we got one we were talking a little bit about backstage. The Canucks are listening to offers on Pettersson and Miller, but I've been hearing lots of rumors of Pettersson to the Islanders for maybe a Barzell.
I've heard those rumors. I don't think the Islanders would be that eager to trade Matthew Barzal at this point. I think the Islanders would be willing to do Brock Nelson and maybe Noah Dobson. I know the Canucks are looking for a defenseman. What I heard about that was that the Canucks might be interested in Brock Nelson, but not as a rental. So they would want to negotiate with him. Nelson is a UFA this summer. Before the deal is made, they'd want to negotiate an extension with his agent, and then you do the the trade and sign. But, look, the problem is this. First of all, I don't think the Canucks really want to trade Pettersson if they could help it. They'd love to keep Pettersson and Miller together if those guys could ever get along. And then the other thing is that there's a lot of no trade clauses and modified no trade clauses and salary cap implications that won't make this deal easy. But there are some reasons it would make sense also. Bo Horvat obviously was teammates with Pettersson in Vancouver. Horvat has said he'd love to get Pettersson to Long Island, love to play with him again. The Islanders need an offensive jump. Brock Nelson has said he wants to test the free agent waters this summer, so the Islanders don't want to lose him for nothing. There's a lot of things that say this deal won't get done, and there's a lot of things that point to it being a possibility. The biggest reason I think it probably won't happen as far as the Islanders are concerned is that I think there are other teams who might be able to outbid the Islanders and make the Canucks a better offer. But we'll see. I did a couple of segments on my show earlier this week about that potential trade and the rumors that were going around over on Locked On Islanders. And, fans of both teams were very passionate about it.
Then we have the trade talks of Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen linked to the Leafs again, which makes sense because they seem like Craig Berube type players anyway. So that makes sense to see them. But I don't know what the Leafs would give up because the Nationals are going to want quite a bit for those two players.
Yeah, they're going to want quite a bit. I'm sure they're going to want some, younger players and highly regarded prospects. And I don't know if the Leafs are that eager to part with some of them.
Then we got, which was kind of interesting to me, Bo Byram and Dylan Cousins on the trade block for the Sabres, which is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, the Sabres are a disappointment this year. They've played a little better as of late, but they're still, down at the bottom. The Eastern Conference right now is so top heavy and bottom heavy at the same time. It's like, you have the top 5 or 6 teams, and then the bottom 7 or 8 teams are only like 7 or 8 points separating the first wild card from the last place team in the conference. So the Sabres, they're still in it, but it just doesn't look like they're ready to take that next step this year. And, I would think patience is starting to run a little thin in Buffalo.
And to me, I think changing the goalie every day doesn't help either because they're not getting any rhythm. They need to pick with one goalie and stay with him.
Yeah, declare someone the starter and let him play, 2/3 of the games at least and see what happens. But look, goaltending has been an issue in Buffalo for a while now, and hopefully they'll find their guy.
And then this is great news because I'm a huge fan of his, and that's Jonathan Taves' skating, drawing interest from 3 teams, the Leafs, the Jets, and the Avalanche. The Jets really make sense because that's where he's from, and I think he would like to finish on his own terms by maybe finishing as a Jet in his hometown.
That would be exciting, and boy, the Jets are already so skilled and so good, and to add that kind of player with that kind of experience for the second half of the season or even the stretch drive would be an absolute jump for the Jets. And boy, you talk about an organization that's hungry to win a Stanley Cup. I think Winnipeg would go crazy if the Jets ever did pull it off.
Especially since they need a second-line center, and who better to fill in that second-line center than that name right there.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's a little bit of our trade rumors for this Friday. So thanks all for coming for that. And now on to our second half here, and that's the guest spotlight. So this is all about you, Gil. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your show and what you cover and what got you started?
Yeah, well, I host Locked On Islanders. We do a new show every day, Monday through Friday, about a half hour long. It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And, it's something I really enjoy doing. I love interacting with the fans. I will answer all comments on YouTube when people leave them, and really do like interacting with fellow hockey fans. So that's always fun. I also host Locked On NHL on Mondays and Fridays. So Monday, it's typically interviewing three of our other hosts from throughout the network, talking about their teams and the biggest stories going on around the league. And then Friday, we sort of talk about big stories and prepare for the weekend. I have a co-host on Friday, Rachel Donner, who's from Locked On Flyers. So been covering hockey for, about 20 years now, but been a hockey fan since I was 5 years old. My very first game was at the Nassau Coliseum, and it was the last home game of the New York Islanders' first ever season against the Buffalo Sabres. I saw the French Connection line going up against the Islanders expansion team. And then my second live game was at Madison Square Garden, and I actually saw the Kansas City Scouts face off against the New York Rangers. So, I've been a hockey fan as long as I can remember.
Awesome. I have your link for Locked On Islanders in the chat there and also in the description of this video. So make sure to go check him up with a like and a subscription. I appreciate it. So I got a couple questions for you, a couple hard-hitting questions too. So what made you want to write a book?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been a big reader, so writing was something that always interested me. And when you want to write a book, you got to write about something you're passionate about, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, again, to me, writing about the rivalry between the Rangers and the Islanders was just a natural. So it just, I used it to sort of help get my hockey media career going, and it definitely accomplished that. It helped me get the job at Locked On. It helped me, get some other gigs over the years, and getting to talk. It's funny because I've been in many NHL locker rooms over the years, and I must have interviewed so many different hockey players. The only time I feel like a little kid again is when I'm interviewing the guys who I rooted for or rooted against when I was a little kid. So it's like, yeah, okay, Sidney Crosby, I've interviewed him a few times. Okay, that's great. I can be very businesslike around Sidney Crosby. Get me in a room with some of the guys that I, grew up idolizing, and I'm like a little kid again. It's really kind of funny.
Awesome. What was your favorite interview?
Wow. You know what? There were a bunch of them. One of the ones that I think I really liked was Neil Smith. And, he started out as a scout for the Islanders, then became general manager of the Rangers when they won the Cup in '94, was general manager of the Islanders for like 90 days in 2007, but then realized he wasn't going to have enough authority that he thought he was going to have, and ended up walking away. But, he had the perspective of working for both teams. Very intelligent guy. You ask him one question, he can talk for like 10 minutes and just give you so much information. So Neil Smith was one of my favorites. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So this is a question I ask everyone, and it's a tough one. So what is your Mount Rushmore of new or old Islander players?
Wow. Okay. If you're doing a Mount Rushmore of Islander players, it's you got to stick with the dynasty years, I think, because you're limiting it to 4, right? You got to go with Dennis Potvin. I can't see leaving him off. I can't see leaving off Mike Bossy. Brian Trottier would be 3rd, and then I guess you got to go goalie. So Billy Smith would sort of round that out. They're all in the Hall of Fame. If you give me more than 4, I could be here all day. But if I had to stick to just 4, I would go with those guys.
So you're the 3rd person on the show who's picked a goalie for their Mount Rushmore. There hasn't been very many goalies picked for the Mount Rushmore.
Goaltending is the most important position in hockey. You cannot win without a good goalie.
Shout out to Sticks G Wrestling for coming in. Thanks, Sticks. Appreciate it. So I knew a little bit about this, but who's your favorite player from the old and now the new?
Okay. Boy. I started watching hockey in the 70s. I always liked mobile defensemen. So, for me, I think Bobby Orr is still the most dominant player I've ever seen. And I liked Bobby Orr and Brad Park as a kid, Dennis Potvin, those defensemen who could take over a game, Larry Robinson. Right now, my favorite player, wow, that is a tough one. Wow. You know what? I'll stay with the goalie. I'll go Ilya Sorokin right now.
Another great goalie. I think the Rangers and Islanders probably have two of the best goalies in the league right now.
Yeah, and they're friends too, dating back to their time in Russia. So that just adds another dimension to the rivalry. I love it. It's just like another little thing where these two guys who are good friends off the ice can go at each other on the ice and just give a little twist of the knife if after a game is over. I love it. I love it.
Definitely. So thoughts on trades and rumors. Is there a player you like that the Islanders could probably are looking at for their team, or a couple players?
I think more than anything, and if people who have watched or listened to my show know I've been saying this for more than a year, the Islanders need to get younger, faster, and more skilled. That's like my mantra for the Islanders. And Lou Lamoriello always does the opposite, but we won't go there. So I think right now I'm more concerned about the Islanders taking one step back to take two steps forward. So to me, it's more like who they need to trade away and then a type of player. I want to see more draft picks accumulated, more young players who have speed, who have a little finishing touch, because the Islanders are not great offensively. And they also need a little more physicality. So it's not like I think this team needs to not rebuild, but retool and maybe not win for a year or two in order to get out of that muddy middle where they seem to be stuck right now and become a real cup contender, as opposed to a team that maxes out by squeaking in as one of the wild card teams and gets knocked out in the first round.
Is there a player you like to see them target?
I really don't have. I mean, Pedersen would be nice. I would not at all complain. He's 25, 26, signed to a long-term contract that's going to keep him there over the course of, the rest of his prime. But, to me, it's more of a type of player than it is a specific individual right now.
Okay. The next one is, what is your favorite Islanders moment?
Wow. Boy, to limit it to one, I have three. Okay. The obvious one is Bobby Nystrom winning, the overtime goal, Game 6, 1980 Stanley Cup Final, that gives the Islanders their first cup. There's nothing like your first, right? So that was a very special moment. The other one is the JP Parise goal in 1975 that beat the Rangers in the very first playoff series the Islanders were ever in the very first playoff series between the Islanders and the Rangers. Shocked the world, and so many of the players on both teams that I interviewed for the book basically told me how much that one goal changed their lives and changed the way the fans treated them and looked at the two teams and everything else. And then the third one, I would have to go with the Easter Epic back in 1987, where that game just went on forever, and it finally ended in 4 overtimes. Kelly Rudy, I think he made like 73 saves in that game. It was just an unbelievable back and forth between the Islanders and the Capitals. And I was in college when that game happened. I watched the first 2 periods, went out, came back, and then watched the rest of the game. Stayed up pretty late to watch it. But yeah.
It's awesome. So do you have any other hobbies? Like, I collect sports cars and stuff like that. But I was wondering, do you have any other hobbies?
Yeah, I'm a big movie buff, and I do collect sticks from some of the players that I love. And have a nice collection of Islanders, of Rangers, and of some other great players from the past mostly. So yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Um, so about the rivalry, do you have a favorite moment of a rivalry game between the Rangers and the Islanders?
I think the best game between the Islanders and the Rangers was Game 5 of the 1984 opening round playoff series, and the Islanders were up 2-1, and Don Maloney of the Rangers tied the game with a controversial goal. I think there were like 21 seconds left. The game goes to overtime. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend watching that overtime. It's about 8.5 minutes of overtime. It's on YouTube. You could find it. Ken Morrow, of all people, ends up scoring, a guy who scored like 1 or 2 goals a year, ends up scoring the game-winning goal. But in those 8.5 minutes leading up to that game-winning goal, both teams had so many chances to win that game, some great opportunities, some great saves. And it's funny, I asked Don Maloney when I interviewed him for the book, okay, off the record, is it a high stick? And he winked at me and he said, it depends when you ask me. If it's a Ranger fan asking me, no, it wasn't. If it's an Islander fan, I'll say maybe. So, at least he kept his sense of humor about it. And I give him credit for that.
Shout out to Ale for coming in, and it's all about hockey. Thanks, guys, for coming in. So what are your thoughts on Patrick Waugh as the head coach?
It's difficult to assess him. I like his passion. He's daring. He's not afraid to pull the goalie, even with 6 minutes left. If you're down by a couple of goals, he'll pull the goalie and do that. He definitely loves the game. He loves his players. I'm not so sure he's getting along, though, or agrees with everything Lou Lamoriello is doing and the way he's filled out this roster. So I sort of hear this underlying tension between Lamoriello and Waugh as far as the way the team is constructed, and I'm kind of watching carefully to see how that develops.
Yeah, I was quite shocked at that hiring because I was like, these are two really opposite player and general manager, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I'm surprised Lou's still there. I don't know if the players just like him or if it's just Lou.
I will say this. Lou is very loyal to his players, sometimes to a fault, because some of these guys, probably they should have moved on from for the good of the team, even if I like them as players and as people. But yeah, with Lou and with Patrick Waugh, you got two big egos, and there can be clashes. Let's put it that way.
And then I guess I know probably a lot of the chat want to know your thoughts on this one, but what are your thoughts about John Tavares leaving the Islanders to go to the Leafs? Because I thought, honestly, Tavares gave his all every time he was there for the Islanders. And I know the Islanders fans boom and everything, but I thought he gave his heart and soul every game, every day for those Islanders.
He did. And I have no problem with anything John Tavares did on the ice. And I have no problem with the fact that, he got the opportunity to move on and play for the team he grew up rooting for all of his childhood. If I had that opportunity, I would certainly take it, especially if they're going to give me an outrageous amount of money to do it. The thing I didn't like about the way he departed is the lack of communication and honesty between Tavares and the Islanders front office. He told the front office he wanted to stay. He was going to re-sign. They didn't trade him at the trade deadline. And then when free agency comes, he turns around and signs with the Leafs. If he would have said, you know what, I want to test the market, or I want to see what's out there, maybe I want to play for the Leafs, it was always my dream, I wouldn't begrudge him that, and I don't begrudge him that, but I wish he just would have communicated with Garth Snow, who was the GM at the time, and then Lou, who came in, and let the Islanders organization know that was his plan. that would have just, I think, the reason that Islander fans boo him is not because he left, it's the way he left.
Definitely. And that happens with a lot of people as well. So this question really stumps me because when I seen Barzal first come in with the Islanders, this kid was amazing, but it seems like he's kind of taking steps back now. And he's not that same kind of player. I wonder if that was because of the coaching staff he had during then, or if they asked him to tone it back a little bit more.
You know, the thing about Barzal is that he's a great skater. He can stay on his edges and change direction and stop on a dime and hold on to that puck. You wish he would shoot more. As somebody who watches him every game, he passes up some really good scoring opportunities to try to make some pretty passes that don't always connect. I think the problem for Barzal more than anything is if he's a passer first and a setup guy, he needs a sniper. And, you know, Bo Horvat's solid, but he's not, you know, a 40, 50 goal a year kind of a guy. If they could get him, if you ever could get Matthew Barzal with a sniper, boy, I could really see his game taking off.
Definitely. I think he's probably one of the most underrated players right now in the NHL. He doesn't get talked about enough, but like you said, it's probably because he doesn't shoot enough.
Yeah.
He's always trying to set up.
Yeah, and passers don't get the headlines. Goal scorers get the headlines.
Definitely. Another great person that came out of nowhere too, and I think he's super great for this Islanders team, and that's Noah Dobson. I really think he is a number one defenseman for that team.
He is. And last year he was outstanding. 70 points, really took his game to another level. He struggled a lot more this year. I like his offensive game, although, again, the numbers are down this year. But in his own zone, he has struggled this year, and it's been frustrating to watch the number of giveaways and mistakes he's made trying to pick up guys and get his coverages right. I think he'll get there. Defensemen typically take a little longer to develop. I think he'll get there. He's got a lot of potential. I just want to see his decision-making, especially in his own zone, just improve a little bit.
And I wonder if that's because of he's paired with Romanoff and not like a veteran-type presence that he can kind of rely a little bit on.
You need a physical and defense-oriented defenseman to pair with Dobson. So Romanov works in that respect. He's also, worked with some of the other, I think he was with Zdeno Chara a couple of years back when Chara was there. You need a big physical guy to pair with Dobson, someone who's reliable in his own zone. So I think Romanov makes sense, but as his partner, but you really need to see Dobson just do a little bit better in his own zone to get it to the next level.
So we got a question here from Christopher Works. He says, what do you think about Pat LaFontaine ending at the Rangers?
I was always a big Pat LaFontaine fan. It was strange seeing him in a Rangers jersey. I never liked the way his Islanders tenure ended. I'm glad he got into the Hall of Fame. He absolutely deserved to get there. And if the concussions didn't end his career prematurely, he would have been a shoo-in and gotten in a lot sooner. It was strange. It was hard to see him in a Rangers jersey. But, there are a bunch of guys who played for both teams, and sometimes it was strange to see them in those jerseys. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You could say the same for Montreal and Toronto, like Pacioretty and stuff like that.
Yep.
They've had all these battles against each other, and then you go to the opposite team. So it's kind of funny to see how that works out as well. But a little bit more about the book and the rivalry. I know I seen Brian Leach's name on there. Did you get to talk to him? Because he is one of my favorite players growing up. And to be honest with you, I have never seen a player that could lead, and he was just straightforward. Like, he was steady, and I don't know, he was just one of my all-time greatest Rangers, and I loved him to death.
Brian Leetch was a great player. I did not interview him for the book. I did interview him a couple of times over the years, but didn't get a chance to speak with him for the book specifically. But boy, I mean, watching Brian Leetch throughout his career, he was dynamic, he was smart, he was clutch. He was so important to that 1994 Stanley Cup playoff run for the New York Rangers. And boy, he is he belongs in the Hall of Fame for sure. And having his number retired by the Rangers was definitely deserved.
Definitely. And one that reminds me of him a little bit right now is Adam Fox. Adam Fox reminds me a lot of Brian Leetch. Every time I watch him play, I can see a little bit of Brian Leetch in him.
Yeah, maybe not as dynamic or as offensively dangerous, but it was a different era also. So the game was a little more open back then. But yeah, Adam Fox, strong player, great player, and I enjoy watching him.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on tonight, Gil. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the time you gave us tonight. Just going to quickly ask the chat if anyone has any questions for Gil about his book or anything about the Islanders. Please let me know, and I'll share it on the screen for him as well.
Oh, and Matthew Wonderwall, okay?
We actually do have a question once it comes up. We got here from Stix G. I'm just loading it up here.
Yeah, maybe. Depends what it is. Sticks, it depends what it is. I'd have to look at it. I would love a new third jersey, like an alternate jersey. I don't want to get rid of the classic logo altogether, but I am down for a good third jersey. And, this team could use it.
What are your thoughts? John B had it right here. What do you think about the Fisherman logo?
Mixed feelings about the Fisherman logo. First of all, it looks like the Gorton's Fisherman. Ranger fans got all over, we want fish sticks. That became their big their big chant. But the reason I think I have a bad taste in my mouth from the Fisherman jersey is just because they were so bad when they first wore it in the 90s, in the late 90s, that it just reminds me of time when they were losing a lot of hockey games.
Diggit has, who would be your top 3 prospects in the Islanders system?
Yeah, I got to go with Cole Yzerman and Danny Nelson as 1 and 2. And, the third one is a little tougher right now to sort of pin down. There's a couple of candidates out there, but I don't have a definite third right now.
Definitely. All right. Well, again, thanks, Gil, for coming in. Appreciate it. And if you guys don't know, his link's in the description. Go check him out, sub him up, give him a like as well. Definitely check out his book if it's on Amazon, Canada, US. And if you can't find it, let me know, and I can reach out to Gil for you as well. And we can see where we can find it for you guys as well. And if you like it signed, let me know, and I can reach out to Gil as well, too. He's also on Twitter. Are you on Instagram, too?
Not so much on Instagram right now. Just mostly on Twitter and on Facebook. Okay,
so yeah, reach out to Gil. He can sign a copy of your book for you. I know I have a lot of great TTM guys in here as well, so most are probably foaming at the mouth to get a book signed from you. So, but as a custom on this show, Gil, we let the guest close it out as they would be closing out their video or their live whenever they have one.
So you want me to close it out like I'm doing Locked On Islanders?
You got it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And thanks to Dan for asking me. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And, of course, let's go Islanders.
See you, everyone. Have a great night. See you next Friday with our guest, David Morzati from Locked On Leafs. So have a great one. See you guys next Friday. Thank you, Gil.
Thank you.